Hey everybody, Kyle Goethe here from the GoatFilmReviews.com and the Goat Film Reviews YouTube channel. And we're trying something different here. I've been asking for feedback on some of the stuff I've been working on. And my regular show, Goat Film Reviews Show, always usually ends with like what I've been watching and kind of what my recommendations are. And I might still continue that to an extent on that show, but I'm going to try a new weekly format here of introducing some of the films that I'm recommending in some various categories for you, the viewer. I'm going to try and pick a different film every single week for these different categories, if you will. Something that I think you should be checking out so that you always have something going into the weekend that is recommended by me. So, let's start right now with pick number one. Yes, pick number one is we're going to always devote one film that's currently playing in theaters right now, this recommendation for me. It's hard for me to pick anything that's too out of left field here, so I'm just going to talk about the movie that has stayed with me since December when I first saw it. It is actually still currently in theaters. It's right at my local cinema right now in week 13 of release, and that is Spiderman No Way Home. This is the latest MCU film. It's currently the last one we've had until I think Doctor Strange, coming up in a couple of months here. I was looking at Spider-Man No Way Home as this movie is going to be nostalgia heavy, and it is going to potentially crumble under that nostalgia. Sony has a very, very bad track record for throwing too many things into the pot, especially on the third films or sometimes the second films of their franchises, and having it crumble beneath that weight. That's not the case here. There's a lot of nostalgia at play here, and I criticize that upon first leaving the theater, but a lot of those elements play into the characters. I think every character, everyone in this film is serving Peter Parker, Tom Holland's character journey as he goes off and continues growing into the role of Spider-Man. And this film feels like it's the ending chapter of an origin trilogy because we are evolving the character pretty heavily into, in some ways, the character we've come to know and love from the comic books, from the other films. But we feel like, I like that every one of these movies has continued to push the boundary of the character and do some interesting twists and turns amongst it. Now, if you haven't gotten this film spoiled for you at this point, then congratulations. That's pretty amazing because I can't imagine not being spoiled for it at this point. I'm going to leave it up to you, though, to go check it out in theaters. The movie runs about 2.5 hours, so find some time to go see it. I've been trying to drag my wife to it since December, and I'll go see it again and again, but she just hasn't had an interest in it, so hopefully she doesn't get it spoiled for her either. But, yeah, Spider-Man No Way Home currently playing in theaters, just knocked Avatar off the domestic release record, so it's overtaking that. It's doing very, very well. I think it's at $1.8 billion, which in a pandemic setting is pretty darn crazy. So if you are one of the people that has missed out on it until now, please go check it out. It would be, I mean, there's like 25 films in the MCU at this point. I think it's definitely upper echelon, top 10 maybe so far. I still think my favorite Spider-Man in the MCU is Homecoming because of the smaller storyscape, but what this one does is a really special thing, and I think it's what they pull off is actually pretty darn surprising because it's kind of the movie that I didn't think could pull it off. I just did not have faith, and I was proven wrong. It's quite good. All right, so let's talk about what's currently new to own on home video. This film just came out on 4K, Blu-ray, and DVD a couple weeks ago, and that is Encanto from Disney. This film was nominated for Best Animated Feature, and I think Best Original Song as well, if I'm correct. This is another one that, very much like other movies that Disney has dropped, felt in recent time that as I started watching the movie, I was like, oh, we're kind of playing the cliches. We're doing everything that, like, by the numbers, by the book. And there's some things that happened about halfway through that completely upended my expectations, went to some fascinating places. And again, I always say, like, I like films from people that are not like me. I am a straight white man. A lot of straight white men have made movies. A lot of straight white men have made good movies. But it's nice to see people who aren't white, aren't men, aren't straight, getting their voices added to the conversation. So being able to see it like a cultural movie like Encanto is like walking in shoes of another person, and it's a really fascinating story. I think the music on it I was initially a little critical of, but it's actually stayed with me a lot more than I expected to. There's some really great songs in that movie. I'm surprised at the ones that got awards contention because there's a lot of better songs in the movie, but it's overall a very entertaining movie. It's fun to have an adventure that is literally set in a house. Like, this is an adventure film in a house. And that's because the house is magical and gifted, and everybody who is in the house has superpowers, if you will. It's a fascinating and fun movie, and it's got some some twists and turns to it that I did not see coming. I kind of compared it to Coco from Pixar in that, again, for Coco, for the first half of the movie, it was kind of playing by the numbers a little bit. And I was like, okay, like, we know this is going to happen. We know that's going to happen. We've got this. We've got that. And about halfway through, there's a change. I think more so in Coco, there's a big change to the story where it's like, oh, that's what we're doing. Okay, I'm really into it now. Twists and turns that really changed a film that I thought was being cliche into something much different. That's how I felt with Coco. That's how I now feel with Encanto. And again, there's story choices I wouldn't have made. But that's because I don't have the same life experiences as the filmmakers behind these movies. And that's why I really, really liked Encanto, and I would recommend you check it out if you haven't gotten a chance. I think that one's currently streaming on Disney Plus as well. So you have an opportunity, but if you're a collector like me, you can always go out and grab that at Redbox and rent your copy as well, now on Blu-ray, DVD, and 4K. All right, let's talk about a streaming pick here. For those of you that have Netflix, you probably heard me squawking about this movie back in 2020. I was a huge fan of it when everything locked down. Watched it 2 or 3 times. And it's a lengthy movie, but it's from a director that I was really impressed with, and that was Spike Lee, who had given me one of my favorite movies of the year. It came out with BlacKkKlansman, returned to make a film with Netflix called Defy Bloods. I absolutely adore Defy Bloods. It was in my top 10 of the year it came out. It's still streaming on Netflix, so I would take the opportunity, if you can, to watch it. I've been hoping for a boutique Blu-ray edition from Criterion of this thing, but it hasn't been announced yet. It's kind of not being discussed as much as I think it's worthy of it. But it revolves around, I believe, 4 African-American ex-soldiers who returned to Vietnam to collect the body of their 5th member. And while they're there, they also try to get a hold of some gold that they left behind. Some treasures, if you will. So it's a movie that is about race, but it's also about brotherhood. It's about friendship. It's about war. It's about the pain of war, the perils of war. It is about... but it's also got elements of like an adventure story and an action picture, and it's kind of this amalgam of a lot of different things. It's a fantastic performance from Delroy Lindo in one of the lead roles. He's playing one of the ex-soldiers, now fully grown, but then also a fantastic performance supporting wise from the late great Chadwick Boseman, who was the 5th member of their team that did not make it home. They go back to sea. The film's got a lot of style and a lot of really impressive cinematography. There's just it's very tough to have any faults with this movie. I was very, very taken with it the first time I watched it, and I found myself actually liking it more the second time too. So I've been beating the drum of what Defy Bloods is. I think it's fantastic, and it's one of those movies I really wish more people had talked about when it was out. It got snubbed for a lot of things at the Oscars. It did get like 1 or 2 noms, I think, but it's so much more than that, and something definitely worth checking out. If you have Netflix, give it a look. All right, last. I want to do a pick of a classic movie, one that's celebrating an anniversary, one that's just kind of been on my mind recently. So celebrating its 35th anniversary this February 27th of this year will be the 35th anniversary of A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors. And I have my set of the 7 Nightmare on Elm Street films. That's signed by Heather Langenkamp. That's pretty cool, huh? Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, The Dream Warriors is commonly considered the best film in that series, or at least on the level with the original. It's the one that kind of righted the ship. I know a lot of people were not big on the second Nightmare film, Freddy's Revenge. Took some really interesting twists and turns, but kind of like threw the established mythology out the window to create something new. I like the movie, but it's definitely one of those ones where I can see a lot of the cracks in the pavement. Dream Warriors is definitely a full translation of what the first film began. We get to see it's a little bit more of like a dark fantasy at times. So the horror is there, but it's dark fantasy in that it creates a broad cast of characters, does some really great visuals. It's directed by Chuck Russell, who a lot of people, some people don't know Chuck Russell, but Chuck Russell did some great movies. He did The Mask, he did the Blob remake, and he made this film from a screenplay co-written by Frank Darabont of Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile fame. Wes Craven was involved in the story writing for this. This is one of the 3 films in that series that Wes Craven actually had a hand in. He did the first one, the third one as a writer and story creator, and then he, of course, returned for New Nightmare. If you haven't seen Dream Warriors yet, definitely check out the first film at least, and I would say check out the second one as well, but you should see the first one before this at the very least. If you haven't had a chance, it celebrates the 35th anniversary of being out, and it's weird to think of a Nightmare on Elm Street sequel coming out in February, but then again, I guess we did get our Scream sequel in January of this year, so it's not unheard of, and some of those movies can still be quite surprisingly good. But if you haven't had a chance to see Dream Warriors yet, definitely check it out. It has a great Dokken song from back in the era when rock bands used to actually do music about the movie. Dream Warriors. It's a great song and it's a great movie. And well, I don't know if it's my favorite over the first. It's really tough. They're both at a very solid level of engagement. But check out Dream Warriors if you haven't gotten a chance. All right, everybody, those are my 4 picks for this week. We've got, let's go through them again. In theaters currently is Spiderman No Way Home. If you haven't got a chance to check it out, if you haven't gotten spoiled by it, this is your chance to do so before it leaves theaters. It may not be hitting home video until after Oscar season gets done, probably in, like late March, early April. So if you haven't had a chance to see it now, you're running out of time. Check out that movie right now. Currently on home video, 4K Blu-ray and DVD, you can find Encanto, the newest Disney musical animated film. Just a nice, sweet little movie to enjoy with your family and friends. A lot of elements that are at play that I think actually grow on you after your first viewing as well. So check out that out, Encanto on home video. If you've got Netflix, you're looking for a streaming pick, check out Defy Bloods from director Spike Lee. It's a lengthy war epic that follows friendship and also talks about race and how these people who went out and sacrificed so much for the good of our country only to return home and find themselves still considered second-class citizens. There's a lot of great things that play into Defy Bloods. Check out the movie, though, and I think it's got a lot of heart and a lot of soul to it, but also a lot of biting social commentary that Spike Lee is known for and that he does really well. And finally, celebrating its 35th anniversary, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Part 3, Dream Warriors, from director Chuck Russell. Check that one out as well. If you haven't seen the first film, watch the first film first, and then enjoy A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors, your horror pick from this environment. Thank you guys for joining me so much. Again, let me know what you've been watching recently, or what do you think of the 4 picks that I've given you this week. Thank you guys for joining me so very much. You can find my film reviews at goatfilmreviews.com. You can find Goat Film Reviews on Facebook. You can also follow me personally at Almighty Goatman on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. And you can check out my show, Kyle and Nick on Film, every single Monday, Thursday, and Saturday with myself and Nick Palatichuk from the St. Paul Filmcast. Pick a different movie every episode to break down, discuss, and dissect in all the many great ways that we can. Thank you guys for joining me so much, and we'll see you next week.